Pardon? We're gonna start this regular council meeting, West Branch Council meeting of August 3rd. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance first. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome Zoomers and live persons. Roll call, please.
Mayor Laughlin.
Here.
Councilperson Sexton.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Dean.
Here.
Goodweiler.
Here.
Stillman.
Here.
Let's see. You're on the agenda, so we have no guest speaker tonight, but we will move right into public comment. We'd love to hear what you have to say, address the council. We'll listen to you. We cannot take any action, however. I guess that's all I need to know. Who wants to go first?
Good evening. My name is Clara Olson. I'm representing a new group in West Branch called Humans for Racial Justice. We've been meeting on Tuesday nights. And one of the things that, well, before I do that, I would be remiss if I didn't do two things first. Thank you for your service to this community. And I am very appreciative of that. Don't tell you that enough, but thank you for what you do. And secondly, to thank the city manager and the police chief who met with representatives from our group. It was very good discussion, very forthcoming, very helpful and very patient and very prompt. So I want to thank them. We know that you're facing the opportunity to hire a new police chief in February because of the mandatory retirement of Mike. And I'm here to suggest that one of the things you might think about and hopefully implement is to have a citizen representative on that search process. In the present climate of opinion, I think it's particularly important. And I also think it's a good message to candidates that you could just be an ordinary citizen in West Branch and still concerned about this issue. I don't think that it is an indication of anybody's inadequacy. I've been on enough search committees in my experience that the more voices you have and also the more listeners you have may very well enhance the process. So the questions that we have, you may have too, but you may not. So I would certainly ask you that when you're thinking about setting up the process, that you seriously consider inviting a citizen to sit on the process. Thank you.
One of you two, or? Okay.
Hi, my name is J.R. Watson, and as a person of color and a resident of West Branch, I've lived here with my wife and two children for a little over a year now. But shortly after the passing of the school bond, it was made apparent that change and growth was happening here in West Branch, and the community need to be as inclusive as possible. As West Branch grows and becomes more diverse, giving those who serve a chance to review the police chief applicants will only serve as a more just and transparent process. I don't believe this is a matter of the council members not being able to select the best candidate for the position. However, this is an opportunity to include more diversity in the hiring process, and when a decision is made, the community would feel more supported when they have a voice in that process. Regardless of your decision, we all look forward to learning more about our next police chief and building a bond between our community leaders and those they serve. Thank you.
Anyone else? Liz?
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Please interrupt if you can't. My name is Liz Wildenberg de Hernandez, and I am a lifelong resident of West Branch, minus a few years of college and a few years in the Peace Corps in Guatemala. I'm here also as part of the group of Humans for Racial Justice, And I wanted to tell you a little bit about the experience of my husband in West Branch. He is from Guatemala. And when we first moved to West Branch in 2000, at some point within the first 2 or 3 years that we lived here, I was driving us to a movie in West Liberty and got pulled over by the police out by McDonald's. I think I was going about 43 in the 35 zone. And the police officer that pulled us over, I'm not sure who that was. He asked me for my license, which was fine. I gave it to him. I gave him my registration, and I gave him the insurance for the car, which I had in the car. And then he asked my husband, who was sitting in the back seat. We had a friend with us as well who was sitting in the front seat. He asked my husband for his driver's license. And I said, you know, he's not driving. I'm not sure why you would want his driver's license. And he said, well, I need to see it. My husband did have a driver's license at that time. He wasn't carrying it with him. He wasn't driving. And the officer insisted. And my friend, who was in the front seat, who is not a person of color, was not asked for her driver's license by this officer. So I said, well, do you want her license too? And he said, yes, I would. And she also was not carrying her license. And we kind of went around and around and around with the police officer about why my husband specifically wasn't carrying his driver's license when he was a passenger in a vehicle. And nothing really came of it. I didn't get a speeding ticket. The officer relented. We missed the movie, so I guess there was that. But it was something that really shook my husband to live in a community where he felt like he was being not trusted by the police. About a year after that, he was pulled over in Iowa City making a right-hand turn on a red light in a place where that was not allowed. Like there was a sign that said no right on red. He was by himself. He did not have his driver's license with him when he was pulled over. The officer was very kind to him and told him what he had done wrong and let him go on with his day. About a year after that, my husband was rear-ended in Iowa City by someone who did not want to call the police when he rear-ended my husband. And my husband was comfortable enough, because he was in Iowa City, to call the police and for assistance when he was rear-ended. I think if that would have happened in West Branch, he would not have called the police. I know that this feels like a really small town where everybody knows each other. And that may be the case. I wish at the time I would have been comfortable enough to approach the police chief about the situation and understand the side of the story of the officer. If that were today, I would have no problem engaging with our police chief about that situation, nor would my husband. And that's the kind of community building, I think, that's happened in this community lately. And I'd really like to see that continue. So I would like to encourage you to have, think about your hiring process for a new police chief and engaging the public in that hiring process so that the public can be more engaged with the police in general, as I think is kind of the momentum that's being built at the moment. I would prefer that there be public forums for any police chief candidates for the public to come and talk to that person, along with having a member of the public, preferably a person of color, on the hiring committee. However, if public forums are not acceptable to the hiring committee, to the council, my preference would be that they have an additional civilian, hopefully a person of color, sit on that hiring committee. Again, I think it's just really important for the police and the community to be engaged. And this is an important issue here in West Branch, as it is just about everywhere else in the country. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Liz, for I'm not gonna call it a story. Thanks for the information. I want one of you guys on it. I really do, on this committee. So it's probably gonna be Redmond, myself. I'd like 1 or 2 council people on this hiring committee. I see no reason why we shouldn't have a person of the public, or 2. You get 5 or 6 people on a committee, that's a lot, but, I was gonna call Jim, and I will someday, if you want a representative,
Yeah, I wouldn't-
volunteer.
Yeah, I would volunteer. Absolutely.
Okay. We haven't even started this yet, so, I know, but,
Right, yeah, no, but thank you very much.
yeah. So I'm all for it, really am. I think council agrees. I would say so.
Thank you very much. For your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Pardon?
I think we did.
Public
I think we
forum.
did. We hired Mike, I think we did. I was there.
I don't remember. They're a little more difficult. If that's what the committee decides, I don't have a problem with it. We'll make it work out. It's a little cumbersome. Okay, thank you. Thanks for sharing. We're going to move on to consent agenda. On the consent agenda is a motion to approve the last minutes of July 20th. Destruction of records with shredded services and the claims. Can I have a motion to approve all 3 of those items? Someone, Jerry,
Second.
Colton will second. My only question was, there's a one-time bill, I think it's to Liberty Communications, is that for wiring?
Phone conversion?
That's one time, I think, okay. Any other comment, questions? Okay, so,
Councilperson Sexton,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Stolman,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Goodweiler.
okay. First up is a discussion about the high school turn lane in front of the high school on Main Street. That is required, so I would like to present Dave Panos of Shive Hattery. Yeah, okay. Who is the engineer of design for the school. And he has given us some handouts.
Thank you for having me here tonight. Again, my name is Dave Panos from Shive Hattery. What I'd like to do is just give you a brief overview on the concepts that we put together. We're working with West Branch Schools to develop. We started out with 3 concepts, basically. So with the attachments that I've given you, if you want to go ahead and detach probably the clip with this front page that has the costs on it, I'll go through that a little bit later. But I'll basically go through an overview of each of these concepts. So really, we started out with 3 main concepts, A, B, and C. So starting with concept A, we're looking at symmetrical widening. So basically widening north and south of center line of the road on both sides of the road. That's concept A. So that does include some impacts to Dawson Drive and then also to the south. So basically asphalt widening, we'd be widening the road with asphalt and then reconstructing a portion of that drive there. Concept B, which is listed as EXB on your sheet. That includes north side widening. So this is asphalt widening from the existing edge to the north, allowing for the turn lane to be extended to the north, or at least to bypass to the north. And then the impact, again, there is basically reconstruction portion of Dawson, and then also some extensive grading that would be needed on the hillside in that channel or the ditch to the west of Dawson Drive. Concept C is essentially widening to the south. So this is basically extending asphalt pavement to the south, 11 foot to provide that turn lane. And then we met and discussed another potential concept with, well, in a meeting with Dave Scheckinger, we talked about possibly doing some curb and gutter and piping. If you look at EXD, excuse me, Exhibit D, that'll be the last page that includes, basically it's asphalt widening to the north. So it's just like option B, but it includes curb and gutter and then some intakes and some piping on that piece. Any questions so far on those exhibits that I have? I know there's a lot of paperwork here too, so feel free to stop me if you have questions at any time.
So the curb and gutter on Exhibit D would go to the creek to the north of the intersection.
Right, so the curb and gutter basically would extend from end of taper. If you look at your station range is 104 all the way to 116.50 approximately, and then it would wrap around. It would basically meet into Dawson Drive, and Dawson Drive would be curb and guttered as well.
And then east of Dawson Drive, where does that water go?
So that water, so if you look at EXD or Exhibit D, I did not remove the grading on there. So essentially what we're going to do, or what we could do with that option D, we flip back to that one. So if you look at the top of the sheet where the cross sections are, if you look at the little section sheets, for instance, on the very top row, I drew kind of a darker line that showed where that split and grading might go. So basically what we're trying to gain with doing the curb and gutter and the piping is to eliminate that ditch. So we grade and shape out that ditch area, flatten that out, and then match into the existing and allow the water that comes in from the north to just basically drain into the street. And then the intakes would pick up the water. Okay. I'll go ahead and look at, move forward, talk about this sheet that I provided. This is really what this is, and just an overview of the cost opinions on each of those options. There is separated, I separated each option if you want to look at that in more detail, but the summarization sheet basically gives a detail of what we have, or a summarization of the cost. So let's just start with option A. That's a split widening or symmetrical widening. That's asphalt widening on both sides of the road. That's approximately $309,000. Option B1 is basically asphalt widening on the north side. With that roadway option, there are 2 utility lines that would have to be relocated with that work. And the approximate relocation cost for that is $36,000. So with that option B, total construction utility cost is $260,400. Option C would then be the south side widening. And option D then is that north side widening with the curb and gutter and the intakes. So I think there were some thought that maybe we would reduce the cost by putting those in. What we saw is that the cost for the earthwork really doesn't balance out with what you need for curb and gutter and intakes and piping. I mean, those costs are much more excessive than what we would, and we would still have to do some shaping even with that work, because basically where the edge of the return is of the curb and gutter, we would still need to shape into that hill. And basically what we did is reduce our earthwork cost by maybe half or so. So if you look down at that sheet again, at the main overall sheet, we also looked at options B1 and C2, or B2 and C2. So basically what those are is B is just the north side widening with concrete, because we wanted to look at what those concrete costs would be. So we're looking at option B, I'll call it B2. North side concrete is $339,600. So that's what we were trying to gain out of by looking at those 2 options was, what is the difference between asphalt and concrete overall, and what those costs would be projected overall. So again, that B option does include that utility relocation work that would be required with that one as well. And then down below, you can see the very bottom option is C2, which is widening on the south side with concrete.
I'm just shocked that that curb and gutter adds so much.
It's pretty
I
significant.
thought it would save the money.
Yeah, again, as I said, I think you still would need to do some shaping and earthwork, and the cost overall doesn't really compare, doesn't really reduce that cost as much as what we anticipated. So it ended up being the highest cost, that north side widening with curb and gutter, $420,000. Of course, and then that does include the utility costs as well that would be required.
Okay. Questions?
I'm looking at the contingency, you got 20% in there
Right.
on all of them.
Mhm.
On any of these options, where do you see that that the possibility of the overruns would be? And is there one of these options that could have more of an overrun than another?
I would say of all the options, the option that is we have contingency in, but really there are still some unknowns, is that south side option. So with the south side option, we're widening to the south side, and we may be will be impacting that floodway area, and also possibly that trail and that bridge area because of the extension of that earthwork and the slope coming off the road. That's where we see the biggest impact. So we say 20%, could be more costs in there. So 20% is kind of a standard contingency for this concept level until we get into design and understand really where the costs are. Then we'll reduce that contingency by 5 and 10% as we get into construction documents.
So the south side, you don't have anything in there for the trail,
No,
the bridge, any of that? Okay.
no.
You have a small retaining wall, I think.
There's a small retaining wall, but based on what the slope looks like and the drop from the retaining wall, it could be a 3 or 4 foot wall. There may be some need for guardrailing or something of a safety feature that may be above and beyond the 20%. So the 20% is there, but my feeling is that those costs might be higher based on what we're seeing with those impacts to the trail. And then also beyond that, depending where the slope comes down from that road, if we try to raise the trail, you're going to impact that property to the south, which we can't. And so we're basically where we're at with that one, with needing a retaining wall of some kind.
So with the, let's go to the trail with the bridge. We don't have anything in front of us, but I'm trying to visualize with the retention that's going in there, and the way that bridge is coming almost into that retention. How's that trail getting back to the trail, I guess is what I should say.
Yeah, I mean, therein lies the question of how and can you raise that trail, and can you raise that trail without impacting that culvert? I mean, I think essentially it's a culvert section that runs under the trail there. Haven't got into, at this concept level, we haven't got into what that would take to raise that. Again, I think what we saw in the field, at least with the site review, is as you raise that trail, your grading and shaping could impact that fence line to the south, which is not something that I don't think we can do.
So if it doesn't go to the south side,
Uh-huh.
I guess my question is still, how is that trail going to be reused in the site plan to the school? How are they going to, is that bridge, the culvert, is that going to get raised, or how does that trail end up getting back to the school, I guess?
Existing trail bridge that's there
Yeah,
now with the
because-
wooden rail.
I guess the way I'm looking at it is there's a retention that's going to be virtually straight south of that bridge. How does that trail get now connected back up to the parking lot, the school?
Yeah, with the school site improvements, I
We'd have
believe.
to look at those site plans.
It runs east and west from the bridge, basically,
But after the
to,
bridge, it goes
Mhm.
east and west across the road, and then the sidewalk would be on the west side of the road and then straight north, or south, to the parking lot.
So there's no impact at all to the bridge or that trail?
Are you asking as it is now with the site plan?
Yes.
I'm not aware of any impacts to that right now.
I was
There's some minor shaping, I believe, with the detention basin on that side, just to the west of that trail, but I'm not aware of any impacts. Yeah.
What I was
As it
getting
is
at
now.
is if there's an impact to that trail anyway.
With
then
the site work. Mhm.
With the site work, is it something we should look at,
Yeah.
by
It-
putting it on the south side?
I don't remember seeing anything like that.
No,
Jerry.
no.
I don't believe there
I
is.
remember it connecting
Yeah.
To go east-west like Roger was saying.
Because if there were impacts to that trail over the culvert, then there's impacts to the railing and there's impacts to all those other things along that area. So I'm not aware of any impacts with that site plan to that area. You're right, though, absolutely. If there was something that was done on the site plan that was going to modify that, then certainly we could work that into the plan, but
Right.
that's not the case, as far as I'm aware.
I guess, because I've always looked at this, I've always thought that this should go on the south side, but from what you're saying is it sounds like the contingency could be easily used up on the south side more
Right.
than maybe on the north side.
The other portion or the other part of extending the south side is a possible drainage study that would be required because we're impacting that floodplain area. So does that include or does that require some extension of the culvert pieces? So there are other things that work into that too that may not be covered in that 20%.
You see that with the split as well, or just the pier south?
Just the pier south.
I don't know if the split. I mean,
The split will have somewhat of an impact on that basin, but not as much as the full south side widening.
I think both, am I right to talk? I apologize.
yeah,
Go ahead.
you're
You
good.
bet.
I think both DEP and Davis also said the possibility of going to the north, that would allow some flexibility in years future, that if there needed to be any more extension, you could still potentially go south. Is that right, Dave? I mean, just in conversations that we had.
Right, absolutely, yeah. I mean, if the road work now is extending to the north, there's always the possibility of doing work on the south side.
Right,
If
there,
they
you
want
do
to.
the work on the south and then potentially go to the north, you might have some bigger issues 5-10 years down the road.
Once landowners have got that land, businesses.
That's why I was eyeing the split.
Split.
Because if you don't impact that much in the south, you do the split, you don't get the utility cost either to the north.
Yeah, I think the concern that Dave had was with the split was the tire traffic would be riding more so on that joint line. It's more centered in the lane, which I think is where he was concerned with that degradation maybe in the future. So whereas now we're pushing that off, so traffic is not running generally down that line.
Okay. So you've got 3 proposals with cost. Costs are, some are better than others.
Yeah, so I highlighted on the sheet, obviously the north side widening, it does appear to be the lowest significant cost at $260.
Does the utility work the gas or?
Utility work is, Liberty Communications is in a easement right now, just on the edge of the right of way. So any facility that's in the right of way that's private within the franchise agreement, from my understanding is that those costs are on them to do that. And I did speak with Alliant Energy, their representative, about that, and he did confirm that as well.
Do they want to move that gas line or?
He indicated that it would be okay where it was. He was okay with having it under the road, as long as the depth is okay. And the depth of cover seemed to be okay based on what our excavation depth is from the top of pavement down to our subgrade prep. So you've got to look at that entire section. And based on that depth, he seemed to be okay with where we were at. Because sometimes the utility companies, especially gas, they don't typically want to be, or maybe if it's an older line, they don't want to be under the road. So I did approach him and talk to him about that.
Did we determine how thick the initial street is? Didn't we determine?
Yeah, we did 3 borings on the road when we initially started. I believe it varied from 8.5 to 11.5. I don't have those numbers in front of me. I can get those to you if you need those.
I was thinking that's probably where we talked
And
about before.
yeah, I can get those numbers to you. I know that the thickest piece was 11.5, probably in the center of the road, because what they typically do is when they created the crown, it becomes thicker in the middle, and then it tapers off in the end. So we basically did one on one of the, I believe the westbound lane, middle of the lane. We did one in the center, and then we did on the eastbound lane. So in 3 different locations, we wanted to check the depth on that.
And the thickness of the new street that we're adding 6-7 inches?
8 inches, 8 inches of asphalt. 6 inches, so 8 inches of asphalt, and then 6 inches of modified sub base, and then basically a compacted subgrade.
What would the ditch material be? Soil, gravel?
The
It's a ditch.
The ditch will be just soil. We'll topsoil it. We'll basically put topsoil back. We'll strip the topsoil off and then grade it and then put the topsoil back where it is. We can certainly put some erosion control materials in there
That's what I'm
to
getting
keep
at.
the erosion down. I know that's been a concern with you guys, is that erosion in that ditch. So certainly, as we move forward into that, we can do special matting. Likely on that hillside, it's a 4-to-1 or more. It's 4-to-1 basically is how it's graded out. It's a mobile slope, but we still may want to do some erosion matting on that hill. But I know your concern was that bottom of that ditch. One time when we talked.
It just disappears after a while. The water creates that drop off. Without that curb and gutter, I don't know.
I know there's asphalt options, but I think I'd rather see concrete. I don't know if anybody else has an opinion.
Oh,
I'd rather see concrete than asphalt, but a lot of the
We've
options,
gone through this.
asphalt, and there's the other concrete. What's that?
Previous council has gone through this issue where we ended up spending 20 or 30% more than like on First Avenue, that first street. That ended up being a lot more expensive than what it actually could have been. Because we wanted to do,
concrete.
well, we wanted to do more. We had several options and that ended up being.
So our decisions are, this council, choose an option that we prefer, along with the cost. And then how we're gonna share it. So that's our decisions, not tonight, but that's what they're here to present to us, these options. And I'd like to get this resolved in a decent amount of time. So.
What's your preference, Roger?
Well, the north side's my preference. I mean, I'm disappointed that curb and gutter cost so much. I had high hopes. I guess it's gonna have to be the north side. The 420,000 just seems like a lot of money to do curb and gutter.
That was asphalt, curb and gutter. Even more, probably.
Concrete, curb and gutter, asphalt street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Concrete would be
Right,
even
that's
more.
asphalt with curb and gutter we
Yeah.
didn't
So We
include.
had another
Right.
30.
Mhm. Right.
Okay, so my question is, we were going to asphalt to the north of where the entrance is now. Matt, what were we supposed to do?
We were gonna do that washout.
Right, that
North side of the
washout
street. We were
on the
gonna clean
north,
that asphalt. You're gonna asphalt.
right,
Right. It was just the shoulders.
go ahead.
It was just the shoulders. It would have been a 6-foot wide cut, and then I think it's 5-foot wide of asphalt put back in.
I
But
want
then, uh,
how it all, I mean, both entrances and exits, I guess.
So you'd rather see a strip map with everything together on one
Yeah.
sheet? Okay.
And I don't know,
Well, you can see
we're gonna
it.
have to do that washout.
Actually, no, we won't.
Why?
Because they're gonna take care of it for us when they go over there. Basically, they're gonna go wider than we were gonna go.
Yeah, they're going, what,
Now-
12, 10?
Now, my
Where-
concern
what station is that
was
at? That should
that
stop.
water that come down there and washed that out, now we asphalt over it, even the way we were
Be
gonna
west
fix
of
it.
Dawson,
Now
West of
where's it
Dawson.
going
down
down?
across from the high school.
Okay.
Same ditch.
Still coming down there.
Okay.
Still coming down the same ditch.
That's what I'm saying, it's
Still
still
got
gonna
the
come
same
down
problem
there.
all over again.
Washing out.
Washout, yeah.
Just gonna wash out somewhere else.
I mean, what you could do is some revetment ditch checks, or we could do something to try to slow that water down. Is it washing out from the west? Is it coming off the road? I guess we'd have to take a look at
Pretty
that.
much the beginning of the taper
Yeah.
to Dawson Drive, pretty much.
We're talking about the
Okay.
washout off the road, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which is coming off of the road.
Yeah, if that's the case, if it's raveling off that road. We're going to do an asphalt road and then I believe gravel shoulder there, and then it's going to be earth, down to the existing ditch or down to the new ditch.
Okay, so I guess I'm ready to ask, Marty's given us a proposal at one point about a cost share. Are you still valid on?
Oh, absolutely. What we talked about was looking at a 50-50 split. The school would pay for all of it up front. And then we would just ask the city to reimburse over a 3-year time period that 50% of the 50-50 split. I think that gets you guys into your new fiscal year, allows for a little planning, and then again, send it out. Again, if you'd rather do it in 2 years or 4 years, I mean, I think that would be definitely flexible, to help you guys, or help the city out.
I don't like dragging it out too long.
Right.
Does the school have any preference? Or on an option, or is it just,
Yeah.
let's get it done?
I think at this point in time, if we can come to an agreement and we're willing to work with the city.
Marty, what's your preference on these choices?
Well, I mean, in talking with Dave, I mean, I think what makes sense, I guess, obviously would be to go to the north for multiple reasons. One being that it's obviously cost effective for both the school and the city. Secondly, when they talk about the flexibility, it's nice, all right, you take care of the north. If there's needed any extra width, there's room on the south that you could do something down the path, down the road. You might be limiting yourself if you get all the residential and commercial done on that north side prior to needing the widening and thing. Honestly, yeah, like I said, I don't think as a school, preference-wise, I think that would be our preference. But again, it needs to be a joint agreement.
I got a favorite. It's the asphalt with curb and gutter, concrete curb and gutter. I'll tell you why. It's because there should be no more maintenance for us for the next 20 years of adding gravel. Our guys don't have to go out there and fill in what might wash out that ditch. Unless you can tell us it's not going to wash out. That's $10,000 each, school and city. That would be my preference. Otherwise, I like the cheapest option. Those are my two preferences.
So here's my
Go
opinion.
ahead.
Nobody wants to hear it, but I'm going to tell you. First of all, it's a gracious offer, but at the end of the day, I still don't understand how this is the city's project. This is turn lanes that are here to service the school because it's expanded and is add extra drives. It really is not the city's project. The money comes from the taxpayers. So we're taking money out of our taxpayer kitty to put into their taxpayer kitty to pay for their project. That's my say so on that. Now, if we're going to do the split, which I think we probably have enough people that are going to want to vote yes, but I'm going to tell you how I feel about that anyway. Then if we're going to have to pay for half of something, then we're going to pay for half of something that we want. And I agree with the mayor that the north side asphalt curb and gutter is going to give us a product that's going to last longer and it would meet our needs more. I mean, just to put a turn lane in, that's not really helping us at all. All that's doing is providing a turn lane for the school.
There's been talk for years about improving Main Street along this section. That's why I feel we're on the hook for some of this.
but it really doesn't do anything to improve the existing street.
Right, that's why,
All it's doing is providing a turn lane for the
let's
schools.
fix the problem in the process and get that washout problem
So-
solved.
On that note, then are we looking at the curb and gutter on both sides or just the one side?
Just the one side.
Okay, so that doesn't help the washout. Doesn't help the washout on the south side. It still washes out on the
That's
south
not so
side.
bad. That's not nearly as bad, is it?
Yeah, it is. It washes out over there. It washes clear into the school's ditch.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't notice it because by the time they mow over it, the grass gets covered, comes up through. So
We don't have
the
to-
curb and gutter on one side helps the north side, but it doesn't help the south side.
But we're not doing anything on the south side.
I know, but what I'm saying is it's not solving the washout problem.
Yeah, it solves half the problem.
And at a $160,000 additional cost. I'm pretty sure we can have our public works a few times a year go out there and put gravel on for many years for $160,000. Now, yes, half of that cost would be ours, but I guess that's my opinion. Now, the other question would be is, could we do a soft curb that would keep that water in the street till it gets down to the intersection or somewhere close to the intersection of Dawson, so it doesn't roll off into the, a soft curb of what, 3 inches? Is that what a soft curb is, 3 inch?
I'd probably,
Do that with asphalt?
we don't typically recommend that just because it's not as durable as a concrete curb is going to be. Plowing is probably going to remove some of that. It's going to have impacts. So I'd hate to have you put the cost in to do that and then have impacts and damage. And so an asphalt curb typically does not. It's not going to last as long as a concrete curb will. Right? Durability just won't be there. And we'll base our design on SUDAS, the state design standards, which I believe West Branch does, and we'll definitely talk to Dave Scheckinger about that. But so does Matt have a question?
Yep. Worry about the curve because it's only on one side. It was about 60,000 to do asphalt shoulders on both sides from Cedar Johnson all the way down to about John Fuller's driveway
One side or both sides?
on both sides.
How wide? 5 feet?
I think it was 4 or 5 foot. I'd have to go back and look at the quotes that I had. But they milled out and put in 6 inches of asphalt. And that took it straight down to the ditch. So, I mean, if we're looking at that 160,000 to get the curb on the one side to fix it, you could spend 60.
Okay, got his point. Okay.
Run. So.
Thanks, Matt.
Cut out for the last.
Yep.
Okay, well, we're not gonna take, I don't know. Anybody have any feelings?
All I know is, being on the council, all my years of experience, we have a way of going back and fixing things that weren't done right the first time. And if we're looking at option D, it would be done, it would be done right. We wouldn't have to come back and do it. And another council 5-10 years from now wouldn't have to look at it and wonder, well, why didn't that council in August of 2020 do it right the first time? Then again, that $260,000 looks pretty nice compared to the other one.
I guess the
Jody?
The other question
Preference?
would be is do we have it in, we'll have to have it in our budget in the next couple of
You
years.
got that money, we'll have to figure it out.
No, yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's
It's 100, well,
It'll just be other stuff we don't
about
get to do.
80,000 for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
Something Jody, what do you got? A feeling one way or the other?
Yeah, but you don't want to hear it.
I'm asking you.
My feeling is, Colton, I'm with you, so. We didn't create the problem. So, and they've already got one driveway, so I don't understand why we're adding another, why they're adding another driveway, and we're not doing anything to the pre-existing driveway, but yet we're making all this expense for the new driveway only because there's a road going into a development there, which I get, we need a turn lane, but
Is this turn lane valid for both driveways?
It
You
is.
start to taper
Right.
away.
Yeah. Yeah, and the turn lane is, it's based on total traffic on the road. It is being added because of the additional traffic on the.
so do
the
we have a
school road.
turn lane going into the existing one?
But with the mix of traffic in the future is what the projection was that. this
See,
was
that's,
required.
it's, by putting another driveway in, you're creating that,
The driveway's gonna happen. It's already been.
I know it's
planned.
gonna happen,
Second driveway's gonna happen.
but that's fine that it happens. They're making it, they pay.
We
They
get-
want the driveway.
We get an improved street, however.
No, we don't.
Yeah, we do.
We get improved turn lanes.
And we pay half. We pay dearly for it. That's my opinion.
All right, I asked. Thank you. Okay, I think that's probably about all we're gonna get tonight.
Great.
So,
You didn't ask him for his opinion.
sorry. Which way you wanna go, Nick?
I don't mind the curb and gutter part either, but I don't know, I've never been a fan of, in the few projects I've done where in my career, where I've ripped out concrete and put in asphalt, it's never turned out very well. It's already a concrete road. I'm not a big fan of asphalt, put it that way, especially if you're gonna put concrete curb and gutter. And the projects I've done in the history I've had, that connection there isn't always the greatest.
Between the old and the new.
No, between a concrete gutter and an asphalt street. I've seen issues just in what I haven't had extensive career, but I've seen issues with that, and you go back and you cut that 1 foot out and you put it back in, and then 2 years later or a year later, you cut it out, put it back in, especially once you get the amount of traffic that's gonna go out to the school. We're essentially gonna double the traffic. They're moving the middle school there. And that's why there's 2 driveways. So you're gonna have a lot more traffic on that road. You're gonna have a lot more events. And not to mention, just as they develop that area, you're gonna keep getting more traffic. So I'm not a big fan of ripping off concrete, putting in asphalt, in my opinion, but he's probably done it for a lot longer than I have. I'm sure he can tell me that.
So the existing road is full depth asphalt.
Oh, yeah,
It is full depth asphalt, right? So if we would do the concrete extension portion, certainly there is, that joint would have to be sealed. I mean, sealed and maintained. That's the biggest issue, with those two materials together, likely is there's infiltration water there. They could have issues, but if it's sealed and maintained, then you're okay.
I guess I trust the
I
workmanship and the engineering to make it.
Nick
Go
brings
together.
up a good point, because I can visualize what's gonna happen with the asphalt. If we went asphalt and curb, most of the traffic, most of your wheels are gonna run on the first foot or two of the asphalt next to the curb. We have it in town, we have it everywhere.
Soft issue.
You got a low spot, a high spot, and a low spot where the traffic runs all the time. So at some
Concrete
point,
typically doesn't move.
right, at some point, then you get that low spot, the water will always run, the low spot won't make it to the curb. So it gets to a point. Over time, if
That just goes back, if you're gonna do it right, I mean,
we're gonna
that's,
do it right, then the whole thing needs to be concrete, which is probably twice what this price.
I mean, whether you do a full widening of concrete or you just do the curb and gutter, you're always going to have that asphalt to concrete interaction. You're going to have that joint, at some point. Having just the curb and gutter might be better because it's all the way out to the end.
it is just.
And you're not going to have that wheel path riding on that. So that's something to consider as well. But I think over time, as long as it's constructed correctly and it's maintained, the design standards are set up such that, that's built such that it lasts for the duration of that material.
I look at the turn lane as an improvement as well, because as we develop that stuff to the west, are they gonna put any more connection streets?
No,
Well, that we know of.
no, they
It
can't.
goes on
It's a
Cedar
big
Johnson.
hill.
It's already been platted.
Yeah, it goes to
It's been
Cedar
platted
Johnson
already.
Road.
Yep, Cedar Johnson Road. That's it.
Just making sure. I thought so, but
The
I
hill's
wanted
too
to,
steep.
yeah, thought so, but I wanted to ask. Because there would be an advantage with that if they were to add something, but.
Okay. I don't know if we're gonna get any farther tonight or not, so we'll have to keep talking about it.
Okay.
Is there any sort of deadline? I mean, or
So the
next summer?
Try and get it done.
The project is intended to be done next summer so that it's done before school starts, the following January, following month. So the project of this size could be a 3 or 4 month duration, but essentially what we anticipated is if utility relocation can be done in the spring, then we could construction could likely start right away, depending on the duration of that utility relocation work. But I believe Liberty indicated they would start on it right away. In conjunction with work they're doing to the west. So
Right away, meaning this fall?
in the spring,
Right.
right away in the spring as they got going on that work to the west.
Okay, well, I hope we can make a decision by then.
Well, I'd say if anyone has any questions for me outside of this meeting,
Gotta have our budget certified by March, so.
feel free to reach out.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna move on to staff work plan, item 2. So we got a long list of projects. To
Yep.
explain anything, Redmond?
Well, sure. First, if there's any questions, I'll take on any one project. I don't think we want to go through each single one, but just particularly for our newer council folks, this is kind of the last step of our budget process. Frankly, we start off with the goal setting, and we go into and figure out what things that we can actually fund that year and budget. Then we actually go through our budget process and get the budget approved. And then once we get that, then we actually start our implementing process. And so the staff work plan is the transition between what was approved and was able to be budgeted, and the staff updates on how to keep those projects moving along and when they will get completed. So you can go back always. This is going to be placed online. And you can always go back and check up on how things are going and try to keep it kind of updated as we go on a quarterly basis. And then additionally, if there's any particular project that you're particularly interested in, then you bring it forth like you always do in the council meetings during the cycle. So this is just another step to keep everything transparent and let everybody know where we are on things. And this list pretty much shows where we are as far as complete, in progress, if we haven't started it yet. So when we go into our department meetings, we'll go in through a quarterly basis and look at when do we think this is going to be completed, Some things won't be taken on until the last quarter in spring, and depending particularly with public works, sometimes it'll be early on in the summer and the fall. Usually winter, it has a whole different characteristic to it. Then we try to do certain things in that time frame too. As far as admin goes, certain things we like to try and get an answer for before we go into our next goal session, which happens in November. And since it may happen a little earlier this year, because we're going to take on a capital improvement plan this year for the first time in some years. So we'll have started our planning process a little earlier. But this is just kind of keeps it going, keeps it in front of you, and gives you a place that you can reference anytime you feel like you would like to, as well as the citizens. So, so that's the background. So if there's any particular questions on things that we might have talked about, there may be some things that between the transition between the two councils might not be fully updated on certain things. And there are also things that staff know that we have to get done that's in there that might not have been a goal setting project, but it's something that we know we have to address. So it's also in there. So there might be something you might have questions about on that as well.
I have a question, probably for Dave more than for yourself. Is the widening of the downstream widening? Where are we at with the Gaskills? Supposed to have a meeting this month, weren't we? Last month.
It didn't happen.
Then let's start proceeding.
We already told Dave the doer.
Yeah. So did have a conversation, and I think, yeah, Kevin's on the line. Kevin's going to start the process. Doesn't mean we're going to stop communicating with the Gaskills, but we're also going to start the process because that's a lengthy process as well, and we don't want to throw the project off. So, Kevin, did you want to speak anything additional to that?
Yeah, the next meeting will, since it's ag property, we have to do a couple hearings. So the next meeting will start that process with the first resolution.
I have some insight into that whole project as well as other upstream. We are part of the Lower Cedar River Water Management Authority. Mary Beth Stevenson has informed me a month or so ago, and we've had a meeting or two on it. The NRCS, Natural Resources Conservation Service, is putting out a grant that the Lower Water Management Authority wants to apply for. This grant would cover the design of any structures we want to do, environmental assessment, and potentially construction of projects that we would want to do downstream or upstream. We're going to apply for that grant with the Water Management Authority. We're going to apply for it. And there's a project, they picked 3 projects. One in Marion has a little flooding, a little town called Bertram, south of Marion, I think. They got a couple creeks that come together. They have a problem. We, however, we have a model made up. We're literally, well, not literally, we're shovel ready for design anyway, for the design work. So we're well positioned, and that's thanks to Mary Beth and the previous councils to pay for that stream modeling and stuff. So, and that's what I was going to meet with on Wednesday morning about at Bronick Park about this, the grant. Someone to do with the grant's going to be here on Wednesday morning. I'm going to meet with them.
Do we have pictures of what downtown flooding looks like to apply to that grant?
Oh,
Yes.
we'll have that.
Yeah, I have a lot of pictures myself. Yeah, we got pictures.
We have locations, possible structures upstream with the help of Dave Scheckinger. They're going to want cost estimates, engineer estimates, and locations of all the potential upstream structures also. So I talked to Dave a few days ago and asked him if he would charge us to do that. He said, probably not. He can roll that into a marketing So it may not cost us much to get that much done. Otherwise, full engineer estimates and all that stuff. Am I off base, Dave, or am I close?
No, you're on. We'd be looking at it as project development. So if it's a prospective project, that if we're successful with the grant, we could just do it as a, like you said, almost like a marketing, but it's just a project development for us.
So for now, it shouldn't cost us anything, very little to get this grant applied for. One of the kickers is the grant sponsors has to be, we're trying to get Cedar County and Lynn County together to be co-sponsors for this grant. Someone has to administer the money that rolls in. Little town of West Branch, we don't want it. We can't do it. You'll go crazy. Gordon will go crazy. So that's my update on what could happen downstream. The only other kicker is you probably shouldn't do any more design work. And I talked to Dave about that, which probably isn't happening right now anyway, until the grant is either secured or not secured. But I think we can go ahead with the eminent domain thing. And I don't know if we really, we just want on that property.
Right.
I think we just want construction, and then we roll off of it. Is that correct, Dave?
Yeah, and this is not uncommon. We see this with a lot of projects where this pretty much gives us a timeline that we adhere to. And if we stall on the end of cooperation, this gives us the ability to push that a little harder. If they understand that that's a real possibility and we're moving forward with it, it tends to encourage them to try to do something cooperatively so that they can get something they want out of it rather than just straight out going through the eminent domain and taking the property.
Okay, so that's my update on the downstream flooding. So thanks for bringing that up.
You haven't said how much the grant, do we have any idea?
There's no number
No.
associated with it.
Okay.
It could be all the design work period, which could be, $300,000 to $400,000. We're talking big structures, up one or two big structures, or
So just to
little
remind you,
structure.
our original estimates came in around 435,000. And we were able to move parks money, some leftover parks money from Covey Park of around 250 or so. And then we also had planned on taking 100,000 from stormwater. So we're getting in striking distance, but we're probably still 100 to 150,000 short that we're looking for. So if a grant opens up and makes it possible, then that will be able to, yeah.
Jerry, we were kind of in the idea that it was an important enough project that if we had to borrow money, then we borrow money.
Sure.
So we don't have to pay for the grant.
no,
I guess
we
my-
don't have to pay to apply for the grant.
Another question I would have is,
Better.
we're looking at taking some money from Covey Park, what's left over, but we're also looking at some stuff that needs to probably be done at Covey Park, which would be the parking and stuff. Does that impact how much we put towards the widening? Because, I mean, if we have to put more parking in there, that's going to eat up a huge chunk of that.
True, but I think overall the Cubby money was around 400,000, 385, something like that. So yeah, so there's still enough in there to, for example, get the equipment that we had it budgeted for, as well as what we might want to do with paving or the infield, lengthening in the infield and those things. So there's still funds there in the Cubby, for Cubby, in addition to this 250. I believe it's 250-ish. I'll have Gordon's example.
Worry about Covey Park. We have no idea what all these expenses are going to be with Covey Park, and if we use a bunch of the money that is left over, and say 2 to 5 years from now, we're like, we need some money for Covey Park, and I don't personally see adding a lot more money to that park.
Well, if the widening gets delayed yet again another year or 2 years, we'll have more water, stormwater money if we can keep rolling that in without spending it.
Yeah, and the more time that goes by, the more comfortable we'll get with the expenses, the operating expenses for Cubby. So as time goes on, we'll have a better handle on it.
Should have
Okay.
a better idea on revenue too.
On what?
Revenue. This summer's probably not a good,
Yeah, this is not a good indicator.
probably not a good indication.
Melissa has something.
Yeah. Hi, Melissa. Go ahead.
Hey, I was just gonna say that right now there's about $80,000 left in the Covey Park to kind of tackle some of the little projects to go on, but that 250 has been moved into that other fund. So that's it. You were wondering how much was left in that project fund at Cubby, and it's about 80. Which probably is not going to take care of a parking lot and all the other things. It might if we do things in-house. If we're able to do things in-house, that's going to help out a lot.
Yeah, that would help a whole lot. Matt's good at it too. That's a big project.
Don't have Gordon here, but I think the 80 is what we budgeted for. I think there's more than that in the fund balance, which I think with the 80 and what's left in the fund balance, I think it's closer to the 200 mark. But we'll have clarity on that next. I can even put it in my manager's report, or we'll have it next meeting. But I'm pretty sure that's what Gordon was letting me know, that we have that extra money in there, and the 80 is locked in for equipment that we had budgeted for this fiscal year. I believe there's still more in fund balance.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other comments on our
I have a couple.
work plan? Yes.
So I was flipping through this, and one of the things I remember ranked fairly high on our goals was parkside sidewalk and trail projects. And it says that it's no longer an objective. And I was reading here, it says, however, due to the expense and budget constraints in FY21, project of that nature was deemed unviable. And so then I looked down to the downtown sidewalk project, and it said the same thing. And then I was looking at the Orange Street project that had been a goal for probably 4 or 5 years. And every year we don't have enough money and we don't do it. And then I flipped through this a couple different times, and nowhere do I see turn lanes on Main Street as a goal or objective of this council. And so I just think it's odd that we're not doing projects that we think are important, and then somebody else does a project and we feel the need that we have to pay for it.
Is this a good time to bring up the Greenview connection?
Sure. And we do have Dave. I know Dave and Matt's going to be meeting out there. I know we were trying to get a meeting set up. I didn't get what date is, if we have a date yet, but I know we're working on that. Me and Matt has visited on this several times. We believe we can do that within what we have budgeted in our operating budget, but we still have to meet with Dave and make sure there's something that we didn't miss or anything like that. But Dave, Matt, can you guys add if we got a date together on that yet? Or did you already meet out there?
No, we haven't met yet, but we did go out and take a look at that area. What we're trying to get is an accounting of all the utilities that might be impacted, Redmond, because that would potentially have a cost of impact to that project. So as soon as we have a better idea of that, we should be able to get something put together as far as a concept and cost.
Okay. That's where we are.
Just thought of something I was going to say and forgot it. Oh, do we want Dave to design that, or we might as well have Dave when we get to that design work? Redmond?
Yeah,
Dave should do it.
I believe that's going to be the most economical for us. Yeah.
I was talking with Brian Balcom. They did the street coming up to it, but we should have Dave design our portion of it.
Yeah, I'm thinking, well, we'll let Dave do it. I think it's going to be not as sophisticated and complicated as we think it might be, but we'll wait and see.
In talking with
I don't
Brian,
want to.
in talking with Brian, it seemed like he had something already kind of started on that, so.
They can share a file.
Right.
It
I
should
think
be
that
able
should be
to.
shared, and maybe they've already talked,
Shouldn't be
but
that difficult. Let's
I
see.
think Brian probably had to do some kind of design with the idea that they're gonna connect there to get
Yeah.
elevation
Should
up
have.
to.
And I did talk with Brian. I was like, if you guys have something, because we've talked with them as well, because we've always been talking about this connection. And I said, if you got something, and he thought he did, that you didn't have to put any additional work to, and you're willing to share, he was okay with that. So I just didn't want to get him to be doing too much work and then find out that.
So when are we ready to authorize Dave to do that work, to do the design work?
Frankly, I feel like we already gave him the go to move forward. So, yeah.
Okay. Is that okay with everybody?
I think so, because if we maybe not be able to pay for it this year, but we'll need to have those numbers and know what the hell's going on so we can put it in our budget for next year.
But at any point, if this thing goes beyond what me and Matt budgeted, we'll be back in front of you, letting you know. Well, getting Dave engaged and figuring it out, I think we're going to be okay.
Put it out for bids or?
I don't think we need to. I don't think you know, Dave's our city engineer. He's, you know, I think it fits within the parameters. I think we're good. So.
Okay.
Yep.
Anything else on our project list here? Anybody? Okay,
My
Randy?
comment is, Matt, you have a lot of stuff on here. And there's probably only 2 or 3 months left this year. I mean,
Yeah. Well, the year just started.
He'll get,
Fiscal year.
he'll get
I
spring.
mean, we have until next July.
okay.
So some of these are already in the works getting started. Well, they've been in the works getting started since last January when they got put in the budget. A couple of them are in the middle of engineering, like the water main project on College. We should have that sometime.
That's been going on for a couple of years, hasn't it?
No, we got it approved last fall or last January in the budget, and we just started it. So,
I just saw that we're gonna talk about the side or the parking lot, but you got a lot on your plate right now, and I just don't want you to cut yourself short and taking on other projects.
yeah, and I appreciate that. I think the stuff when we get our other full-time employee, and then when we do some of our restructuring of when Paul retired, it'll help a lot with some of the street projects. We should end up with four streets guys, but well, including me, we'd end up with 4 streets guys. So our street projects can actually continue instead of getting put on hold for other things. So
All right.
I think, yes, it might be aggressive.
Okay, you ready to move on? All right, thanks, Redmond.
Welcome.
Item 3.
Oh, so want to approve the motion.
Oh.
Didn't take a vote, did you?
No.
Or didn't get
No, all right. Can someone want to give me a motion to approve? Nick will motion the staff work plan that we've been looking at. Okay, Tom will second. Is there any other discussion? Okay, let's vote.
Councilperson Goodweiler?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Stulman?
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Sexton.
Yes.
All right, item 3, Resolution 1920, considering the request of Kathy Steen for special consideration for a vacation accrual adjustment from 4.0 to 4.9 hours per pay period, I think that is, to reflect a full-time 5-year employee.
So moved.
Colton motions,
Second.
Tom will second. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, let's vote, please.
Councilperson Miller,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Goodweiler,
Yes.
Sexton,
No.
Stolman.
Yes.
Okay,
I will say one thing though.
go ahead.
I think if we're gonna do this, and I have no problem with it, but I also understood Jerry's point last week. That, are we gonna turn it into a special, every single time, special thing, or should we come up with?
Well, aren't they part of the goal thing, or the, is they're going over the handbook, so
That's
just,
the only reason I wanted to bring it up, because it'd be hard pressed, especially if you have somebody that's part-time that's, I mean, we gave it to her because she's.
It's been part-time for 5 years.
Yeah,
If it had been
but
3
that's-
years, it'd be a different story.
Right. I mean, and I
Again,
think
but we
that's-
also have part-time people that have been here for longer than that. So if they go full-time, are we gonna toss them in at 20 years worth of full-time?
So, maybe I'm speaking out of line.
Go ahead.
Most people that have been part-time for 5 years, there's a reason why they're part-time for 5 years. I mean, she was kind of an exception of why she was a part-timer for 5 years. She was first of all, because there wasn't space for her. Then the other time or two that we were considering offering the job, the time wasn't right for her. You know, that's, you don't usually have part-time employees for 5 years that switch over. I mean, usually they lose pay. You know, they're
Yeah,
impatient, they leave, and they leave long before that. I mean, I don't think it's a scenario that we're gonna run across too many times.
That's fine. I just figured I'd talk about it.
It's fun. Yeah.
I think it sets a precedence. We have a handbook for a full-time employee, and this is now the second time that an employee has come to the council and wanted something that's, I think it just sets a precedence that any employee can come to the council and ask for whatever they want, and right now we're 2 for 2 for 2 employees that have come and asked for something, and
Well,
we just give them.
Jerry, I talked to Redmond about this, and I understand your concerns. And I gave some suggestions to Redmond that he make recommendations based on the city manager. One instance could have ended it by saying, needs to go back to the department head for evaluation.
Yep, you're right. I
You
think,
know,
I think it comes through the department heads, to the administrator, to the council.
And with this one, Redmond could have said, could have given reasons yes, and could have given reasons no, and could have said the city handbook says this, and we'd be deviating from the city handbook. And that would have helped with our decision.
I have nothing against Kathy. She's been doing great for our community for over 5 years now, but I guess that's where I was at, is we have a handbook for a reason, and when you're a part-time employee, you're a part-time employee. When you become a full-time employee, you start from the bottom and you work your way up. That's the way it is. Now, if that would have been negotiated prior to her being hired as a full-time employee, that was part of the benefit that she was going to get as being a full-time employee, that's different.
And just to build on what Tom was talking about, there's nothing wrong for the council to say, thank you for bringing it to our attention. We'll have the administrator look at it. And that allows staff to then be able to evaluate the situation. And sometimes staff lets us know that they're going to do that. Sometimes they don't. In either case, if we kind of, look for the council to be able to say, okay, put a little pause on it, that we actually examine the situation, and then hold us accountable for bringing something one way or the other back to you.
Well, we sort of did in this instance, but
not really, but we knew that we wanted to have Kathy go full-time, and we have instituted what we call an employee action form. And unfortunately, that wasn't expressed to the chief, her desire, or to me before that action form was done. And when that action form is done, that's actually what initiates the action coming forth to council. So that the request didn't get a chance to be evaluated by the chief or myself within the time frame of the actual full-time hire. So, but just to say, it's nothing wrong with saying, hey, we appreciate it, and we'll have the administrator look into it. That's totally appropriate. Gives everybody a chance to look at it and get back to you.
well, like I'm saying, we kind of did. I mean, this was brought to our attention 6 weeks ago. We just voted on it tonight. I mean,
So you're talking about, well, I was talking about it in the sense of, I think it was kind of like, yeah, we did that, but that was like after, that was a little bit after the full-time hire. It would have been preferable if that was done before the full-time hire. Then everything could have been packaged to you in a complete format.
That's what I would do.
I would rather that both cases would have went through the chain of command and would have went to their department head or to you. I don't know whether either one did. In my opinion, it shouldn't have came to the council. You and the department head should have been able to handle it. That's my opinion.
Is council required to grant this, or is that a valid decision that an administrator can
So
make?
I'm pretty sure the handbook is the gospel in their point of view.
But see, that's
And
a handbook, and an employee handbook is not gospel because every circumstance is different.
Well, you're right. But in an administrator,
Interprets it.
that's how they interpret it. The only people that can change what the handbook says or interpret it differently is us. So that's why those types of things have to come to us.
If the handbook says they don't get it, then all the Redmond.
Yeah, I'm not gonna make
don't
decisions
get it.
outside of the handbook.
Yeah.
I'm even gonna bring it to you.
But it says right in the handbook that it's just a guide.
True, but I'm not gonna make, I think Colton's right. I'm not going to be straying off of the handbook, doing things and granting that without coming to council. That's what.
Well, that's fine, then you can bring it to us instead of each individual employee then.
I think
With your recommendation,
Right, exactly.
Not only that, but this may not even be on, it's on base, but it's kind of almost has nothing to do with this. Employer relationship is private. It's not meant to be on TV. It's not meant to be covered by the press. So if an employee comes with a grievance in this format, we're kind of strapped. We either have to lay it to them the way we feel right there in front of God and everybody, which is very unprofessional, or not say anything. You put the council in a very, very, very bad position.
That was kind of what I was getting at, is do we have something in the handbook that says, go through them first instead of.
Well, and just another thing too, just as all new hires are given the employee handbook, and they are also given an acknowledgement that they've received it and read it, and that they'll abide by the rules of it. So if they're coming outside and asking for something different, they are choosing to bystep what they agreed to follow.
Okay. So I guess what I'm taking from all this, go to the administrator, go to your department head first, is what we're asking employees to do. And then we'll handle it from there.
Drawing a line in the sand, we're not handling it this way no more.
Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, go to your,
That's kind of.
yeah, they need
the
to
point
go
was
to
like,
their department head first.
it would be as simple as if they've been part-time for 5 years, then they can have 2 years.
Okay.
Full-time, cut it in half. Work 20 hours, cut it in half. Something, you know what I mean? Cut and dry, then you don't have these anymore.
Well, that should be in the,
That's what I mean. That's
And
what,
then
that's
just-
kind of what I was initiating, is if we wanted to set it as a rule, it would be, say you worked here for 5 years, and then if you went to full-time and you worked part-time for 5 years, then you can divide it in half, because that's effectively
You would
your
have
full-time.
incurred 2.5 or half.
Yeah. That was kind of where I was leaning to on this, is get it in there, and then you don't have to, we don't even, so next time somebody brings this up, if it does happen again, it's gonna be, well, it's in your handbook, if you go to full-time, you get half. I mean, it wouldn't help in this instance for her, because it was.
Well, we know
outside of the box,
now,
but-
and after hearing some of the comments, I know that based on the length of part-time service, we're gonna put that into the handbook, because now if a future employee comes and there's a precedence been set and we don't do it for them, then we wind up running into equity or discrimination type of issues.
Yeah, that's kind of what I
So,
was.
right. That's one of the reasons why it's good to have a handbook, because it kind of helps you to stay out of the courtroom. So, you know, you try to hold a particular precedence in line so that employees can't say that they were treated unfairly or indifferent than any other process.
see, I hate the word part-time. Because part-time is anywhere from somebody doing 4 hours a week to somebody doing 36 hours a week. 36 hours is still part-time. And in my opinion, there's a big difference. So I hate the word part-time.
Okay, you ready to move on? All right, let's get a water tower clean. Resolution 1921. Approving staff recommendation to accept the quote of $44,800 from Aqua Shine for the services of cleaning the exterior of the North Water Tower.
So moved.
I'll second.
Good, thank you. This seems like a great bid.
Comment, I wouldn't climb up there and spit on it once for 48 hours.
I know it. He's gonna rent a big lift too.
That lift's probably gonna cost me.
I don't like-
A third of that.
My only question, Matt-
Unless they tether off the top or something.
No, they're gonna
That's
rent a lift.
130
No
foot
lift.
well,
They probably own it.
Over the weekend.
Hopefully they own it.
Get it there on Friday, do it on the weekend and take it, send it back on Sunday.
Let me know when they do that. I'm interested to see it.
Okay.
The question is, it said that they were gonna park on Maple Street?
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
I think he meant.
They call that Maple going south to the school.
Oh,
At the water tower.
Yeah, the little
I
tag.
guess
Oh,
that's called
okay.
Maple Street.
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
That's,
2 blocks away, they're parked.
It's that big of a lift.
yeah, I
It's
was
even
like,
bigger than we thought.
This is a big lift.
maybe the old water tower that's no longer there, but
135-foot JLG lift.
Oh, yeah.
Boom, power washes. Stands in that boom. That thing's gonna be rocking all over. the place. Okay,
Those are fun.
we got a motion to approve. Any other discussion? Let's vote, please.
Councilperson Miller,
Yes.
Goodweiler?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Sexton?
Yes.
Stulman?
yes.
All right, item
Thank-
5, use of tree sap on public gravel surfaces in the city. We okay with that or not? What do you got, Matt? Where is
This is actually Redmond's idea. I don't want to throw that out there and put it on him, but I think I did get I got some prices on doing the tree sap on the gravel road out to the lagoons.
Really?
Yeah, so we were looking at the dust that was getting kind of making havoc on our motor, our blower.
You were in
So
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
I guess I'll kind of explain some of my thought here. So that's where it originally thought kind of started off, and Jerry, you brought that idea up, and after looking at it, I start also thinking about the other gravel roads or gravel alleys that we have in town. We have an ordinance that's supposed to be dust free, so if we did SAP on those alleys, would they hold up a little bit better, maybe keep the gravel in place a little better than we have without spending a whole lot of money? I know there's been a number of citizens talking about the status of the gravel, and we know it's difficult to keep the gravel there, rolls into the road. We got to continue to get it up, and safety issues, all those other things. Maybe this tree sap idea might be something that might be worth trying out to see how it fares on our alleys with something with less traffic and all that. So wanted to kind of get a price on that. And Matt was looking into what it would be, I think, per square foot. I think that's what you were getting price breakdowns on square foot or something along that line. Linear foot.
Yeah, now when I talked to them today, they do it by the gallon for municipalities because it's cheaper. So I got a price on the gravel in front of the lagoons, and they would basically, if we wanted to get price on the alleys, they'd give it to us. They figured it up. I don't know how much they put down per foot or whatever, so I'd have to give them the measurements and all that. What's that?
What's the price difference?
He actually didn't tell me. He just said it's way cheaper to do by the gallon. So it cost us $1,800 to do 2,700 foot, which is from the pavement out to Charles, which the lagoon sit about halfway between the end of the pavement and Charles Avenue.
So on this discussion item, it says that there's two different things: the lignin sulfonate, which is the tree sap, or the soybean industry offers a soybean oil extraction. What's the price difference?
Those I don't know. I don't have a price for either one of those. I have a price for the chlorides. No, I can't find the name of it. The county uses a particular type. It's a calcium chloride, and that's what they use. So that's what I got prices on. I think Redmond put the information together on those two types, and I didn't get prices on separate types of them. This is what the county that we use. But I can get prices on those too and see.
Calcium chloride's corrosive.
Right. That's what they use out in the county. So if that's not what you want to use on, like if we're looking at alleys, we can look at like the tree sap or something else. I was putting together prices for the lagoons, for that road out there.
I'm gonna do the whole road.
We don't need the whole road done, do we?
No.
Do we have to do the whole road?
No, we can,
$1,800
From lagoon to
How much are
lagoon?
the filters? $400 every time we change them?
right. Not every time we change them. $400 every 3 months, basically.
So you got 8, 9.
So 1,600, 16, yeah, because you don't use many in the winter. So maybe 1,000 a year.
Doing the whole road.
It's half a mile. 2,700 foot's half a mile.
Yeah.
Oh.
So we can cut it back some and do, but you're going to want to do from the pavement at least down past the lagoons.
Yeah.
Probably bridge, which is probably 2,000 foot.
I would look into the tree sap, and the reason I say that is because a lot of private residents out in the country use the tree sap company, and And over time, if they do it yearly, because the tree sap guys, they apply it twice. They apply it once in the spring and then somewhere through the summer, they apply a second coat.
Yeah.
Price. That if they continually do that over time, year after year, it ends up, they get a surface that really is bound together pretty good until the county comes in or until the road gets really potholed really bad and they have to tear it up to fix the potholes. But it lasts a long time, but it's something that they continually do over time, and it binds the surfaces together, the material together.
And I'd like a soybean price with us being an agricultural town, you know, at least let's look at the price and see where it is money wise.
Yeah, I've never heard of
I never heard of the soybean. I've heard of the tree sap thing.
Yeah, I just did some research and that's what I found. So, yeah.
I'm interested in both of those.
Yeah, you got a couple things to do, and keep working on the price. And
So for the lagoons, I talked to Secondary Roads, and this is the material that they recommended for that road because of the amount of traffic. They use different types for different roads. So I talked to a guy over at Johnson County Secondary, and I talked to Jarek over at Cedar County, and that's what they both recommended. And when I called the company that Benz and Stevens at Cedar County uses and Johnson County uses, this is the product that they recommended for that road based off of the traffic out there. And they said this would last longer than the tree sap because of the treatment and the grading and what they do out there. We can do whatever. But I did check into that stuff, and that's what Cedar County told me, and that's what Johnson County told me, as well as the people who actually apply this stuff.
Good to know.
Yep.
Good to know. We need a resolution
Another,
to do this? Or?
Right now, this is just a discussion item, but we can go and look at numbers a little bit more. And
if we do want to do this out there this year, we would need to know really soon. The county will come out and grade the road in order to have this done. I filled out the dust permit in case we decided to do it so that it was done. It didn't cost anything. It took me 5 minutes to get it done. Sent that back to them. So we got the dust control permit done, and Benz and Stevens is coming in to do the county on August 13th. So if we want to do it, he gave us the price based off of that. He's already here doing all of Cedar County, working on Johnson County. We don't have to do it at that time. We can wait till next year. It's not that big a deal. It's just if we actually wanted to do it this year, we need to either do it now or it'll be a higher price when we do it later.
Is this a one-time a year application, or is this something they have to do a couple times?
No, it's like the SAP. They usually do one in the spring and one in the fall.
Right. So
it costs you $1,800 per time. So you're looking at $3,600 a year. Now, if we did 2,000 foot, or I think 2,000 is about the minimum, unless you went right in front of the lagoons. But
this stuff this time, and then look at the tree sap or
the drawback to it is if they put it on now, you're gonna lose half of this in the winter, because when they come through to grade the snow, they're gonna grade half of it into the ditch.
Yeah, they basically said it'll be good up through mid-October to the end of October. And then that's when the county will come back out and start grading again for winter. So after we put this on, the county will leave it alone until the mid to the end of October, when they start grading for winter. And then same thing in the spring. They got a time period that in the spring where they come out, they grade it, they put it down, and then they don't touch it again for a few months. And that's all part of that dust control program, I guess.
Sounds like Matt knows quite a bit what he's talking about.
Well, I mean, only because I asked a whole bunch of people all kinds of things because I knew.
It seems like a waste at this point. I mean, if it's a discussion item, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Do we have to do a resolution to approve it?
If
So
you
that's
want
2
to.
weeks from now,
It's under $2,000.
and by October, it's no good.
Well, it's still good. It's just when we start getting snow that they come in and they'll clean the snow off and it,
When they cut, yeah, they're gonna cut it off because they kind of,
well, they'll take some gravel with it.
Yeah.
And get it down.
Well, what they're going to do is like mid-October, they're going to come in and they'll grade everything back from the shoulders to the middle. Then they'll level it off. That's what they do every fall to get them ready for winter. But that's just, they have that cut off time, so August, October.
They bring it back on top. They bring the gravel back on top of the road so that you have a drivable surface for.
But they've turned it all up.
Right. So you're going to have 2 months is basically what you're going to get right now.
It's a waste of money.
It's a waste of money. That's what I was getting at.
So if you,
save it for next year.
Yeah.
Do it in the spring.
so I can get you more information and more different types of material if you want before spring, and I can bring you that back and see what prices and everything are.
Okay, Matt, that's our game plan then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Iowa State did a big study on it.
City administrator report.
Yeah, I hate to say it like my dog ate my homework, but my computer ate my report. So, but there was some items that I recall that I wanted to directly mention to you. Code enforcement is going pretty good. A lot of people are complying, but we have kind of 2 holdouts that are kind of having a hard time getting along with the system. So we had to do a second violation cut on Downey, on North Downey. Yep. So that's going to the hefty, if you remember, the penalties get pretty hefty. So that's going to have a pretty hefty penalty for the second cut that we had to do. And then we've had a long time violator on East Green, the Green Street. Yeah, trying not to use names, but they've got a final notice. So we haven't tried to engage their attorney and also contact district court about the problem. Everybody's very familiar with it. So that process is started, and legal thought it'd be good and prudent to give another notice. So I sent out both certified, regular, and also for the first time email to say, hey, there's the deadline to comply, get in compliance by the 10th. So after that, I've informed them that emergency abatement is going to happen. So they have to either call, engage the committee, or get in compliance, or give us a timeline that compliance is going to happen if it's not going to happen on the 10th. And if they don't do any of those things, then we're going to move forward with emergency abatement. And that's probably going to be pretty substantial, because this time we have a full policy, a full code that expressly addresses issues that we couldn't address last time.
Can that happen on the 11th?
I believe I've already contacted the contractor. They put them on notice, and I believe that can happen.
That's what
on the
happened
11th.
last time. I got mad and just started marking.
Yeah, we don't want to go marking up anything, but
It to happen quicker.
I think this time, if you did mark the things and we had the code that we have now,
Still there.
I think you would have been fine, but that's a whole nother story. So anyway, I wanted to let you know that those issues are going on.
So when you're talking about codes, there's a building in town that usually has, it's been the same cab parked out in front of it for 10 years in the weeds, and the trees grow up around the building. And finally we'll say something and they'll cut them down eventually. That weird shaped building over by Barnhart's.
Yeah, let's.
There's a car
let's,
that's
You have
sitting
to
there
tell
for
me
10
about-
years in weeds.
Yeah, that's major violation.
On Water Street?
No,
Main Street.
It's on Main?
across from the chiropractor.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Look, we'll have to go.
Yeah. Let's write that down.
I know who he is. We've done it before.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, and so I also received a letter from an engineer, Shoemaker and Holland Engineers, and they're inquiring about a Bonhart subdivision just outside of town. And they're asking if the city is going to be interested to make comments or make any approvals on that, even though it's outside of town. So I think we had talked about that before, and we were waiting to hear something. Well, we got something now. So they asked if I would get back to them and let them know what we wanted to do. So if I'm hearing that we do want to have an approval, or we want to be informed, or
Yeah, we do. It needs to go to P&Z first.
okay.
It's not in the city limits.
We get a 2 mile, we can review everything. there.
Yep.
Okay. So I'll let them know we will.
In case
Okay.
they ever annex,
We can ask them to do certain things.
Yeah.
we usually don't, but we just want to see it.
I think they intended to give me some kind of initial plat, but they didn't attach it. So if I ever get that, I'll share it with you and I'll forward it to P&Z. And we talked about Greenview connection and just the latest with the wastewater. Something's cooking there. I think I don't want to get too optimistic, but they're asking an awful lot of questions. And so we've been running around getting answers for them. So I believe we're getting, this is the EDA coordinator that's been asking a lot of detailed questions and asking for additional. So I wrote them an additional letter. They were asking about the funding, our matching component, and getting reassurance on our matching numbers. So it really sounds like they're giving some serious consideration. So that could buy down our project $2 million. That'd be a huge asset for us. So anyway, just wanted to kind of update on that and keep our fingers crossed on that one. Any questions? I'll get the real report out. It'll be online too. If for some reason my computer did not want to print it, and then it disappeared on me. So I'm gonna have to get Nick to get it for me.
Kevin Olson, you got anything?
Just working on the Casey's title work. I did the abstract exam and then realized they didn't update it before they gave it to me. So got to send it over to Whirlings, and they still have to finish the paving and compaction that they need to do before I take their deed. But it's in process.
Been in process for.
Yeah, can't we just do it and bill them? Is that doable?
All right, keep on that, Kevin. Thank you.
Yeah.
I know.
Any other staff?
Here's some pizza.
Melissa, Matt,
Yeah.
Mike?
It's just a-
Okay, mayor and council, anyone?
I got some.
Go ahead, Colton.
Was contacted by a snowbird,
Same email.
Same one.
and I think he makes some valid points.
Yep.
I think he does too.
And his points are that he leaves in the wintertime and he can shut his water off, and then there's a reconnection fee. And then that means he usually doesn't have to pay sewer also because there's no water. But now that we do this garbage in a new way, there's no way for him to discontinue his garbage service. So he would have to pay the $24 or whatever it is every month, even though he's not here to use it. And he thinks that maybe there should be a way around that, where he can shut off his garbage service, even if there's a reconnection fee. I don't even think this fella would be all opposed to that, but
That's the way it looked to me, and he would pay us connecting it in.
I think he's got a decent idea. Leslie? Go
So it's
ahead.
on my list.
If we pick,
I just have to,
we pick,
go ahead,
we pick his garbage can up like we do in other cities and then charge him a reconnect just like we do with the water, I think it's doable. But we have to pick his garbage can up so nobody can use it. And I know they charge a fee for that, correct, Leslie?
Well, actually, what I was going to suggest was other cities I believe have a snowbird policy. And if this gentleman called me, we would shut the water off. We would charge a $50 reconnect fee when he came back in. And when we just had recycling, I would shut recycling off. So if he never asked, I wouldn't know. So I decided this year I should create a form, since we do have this now with trash and recycling. And what would happen is their carts would be in their garage. They wouldn't be putting it out. And I would notify Johnson County of who's a snowbird so they would know not to pick up trash if that cart was out on the curb.
Even if someone comes and lives for a month and.
If we're not charging them, they're not getting services. So I need to verify that with Johnson County to make sure they're okay. I don't know, some people are gone 3 months, some people are gone 6 months. I need to get their feedback, but it is something, yes, I was going to work on to find out and then determine whether or not it's something we need to put into the code.
It's a valid request, I think.
Yes.
My suggestion would be that there'd be, it'd be a minimum of so many months. I mean,
I would
somebody that can
suggest
be gone
3
for a
months,
month or 2 months.
Yes,
I mean, it has to be like 3, I would say at least 3 months.
And I had already thought, I would suggest 3 months, because that's truly a snowbird. You're gone for 3 months. You're not just gone for 2 weeks on vacation, because we don't prorate bills.
Truthfully, the way you would do that to make that work is almost do it where they have to turn in their garbage can and then they have to come pick it up. And there's a fee for them to come pick it. Well, maybe they don't ever come get it again.
And then never get their
No,
garbage
I
service.
would just
But-
notify Johnson County to say this is a snowbird property, do not pick it up, and their driver would just have to have those.
That ain't gonna happen, Leslie. I can already tell you that.
Hey, we're getting there. We're getting more sophisticated.
But
If it's out there, they're gonna.
if it's out there, they're gonna pick it up. I mean, they almost have to turn it in and there needs to be a fee associated with it. And the fee has to be substantial enough to where it doesn't make sense to do it if you're only gonna be gone 2 months or 1 month.
Yep.
I'll check with Johnson County to see what other cities have done.
It's more
No.
than, it's more than a 3 months.
No.
Yeah.
But if it's $5 and, I mean, it has to be like a month, 1 month.
Well, in Johnson County right now, after, I have to check with them for sure, in this first month, so we've gone through a whole month of using these carts now. After, I don't know if it was, Steve originally told me it was after 60 days of the new carts, they could change out for free. And after that, there's a $30 swap out cart fee. That's them coming to town. So I gotta just find out when that happens. So I would imagine it'd be at least $30.
I'd make it, you'd say $15 if you're gone for 3 months.
And I'll check with Johnson County to find out what other cities have done and then
See
bring
what
it back.
they
But
cost.
I wanted
Yeah.
to do a more
Personally, I'd probably just
formalized
read it.
form so that people had to request it. And because it's hard for me to always track it, I do keep a little folder, but if something happens to me, no one's ever gonna know what I'm doing.
Well, if you shut off the water, who's gonna be living in the house that generates trash?
Right.
And a lot of people don't want their water shut off. Very few people ask for water to be shut off. Usually it's, can you turn off the recycling? I've had a few people. I think there's 3 people that actually ask.
But if they don't have the water shut off, then they get charged for water and sewer, whether they're using it or not.
Yeah,
It's
they're getting a
minimum
minimum
charge.
bill. They're getting
But
a
if they
minimum
ask for it to shut off and then there's no charge, is that
bill. No, if they ask, it's $50
for the connection?
for temporary disconnection.
Which is.
And I would say in order to shut your garbage off, you gotta shut in order to shut your garbage off, you gotta shut your water off.
That's how we find out when curb stops don't work also, when we go out there. Then they have to fix your curb stop.
Maybe once you get.
I'd
This
say
resident seemed like he has a few people that he knows that are snowbirds that are
Put a
interested
note on
in
the
this.
water
That's-
bill.
If we let one person know, he's
No one
gonna.
looks at the water.
Okay.
I'd say if we do
That's something we have to put on the.
All right, that's fair
what we
enough.
do.
I tried.
Fair enough.
It's gotta be everything.
We should make.
It's all or nothing.
Right. Shut it all
I mean, when I get to the point where I
You just
want
lose all city service.
The only problem when you say that is then we lose our stormwater fee too. Now granted, I know it's only $3, but we use that stormwater fee.
Should always be the stormwater fee, because you're creating stormwater runoff.
Yeah,
That's
It
what
could-
I'm saying.
it could build up
It's
for
all or
three-
nothing, because then.
It's gonna rain on your house whether you're there or not, so.
Okay,
Everything but storm.
I'll bring you back something. I don't know if I'll have it back for the next meeting, but it will be, 'cause I'm on vacation next week, but
before snowbird season happens.
Yes.
Melissa, I've been asked what the distance is around the Covey Park Trail.
It is, if you're walking on the outside of the sidewalk, it's a half mile around.
Some
intention is to have markers along the route available eventually, but it's, I mean, more or less, it's a little less than a half mile, but that's about the time, the distance.
We maybe put I don't know, maybe
She said
way
they were
off.
gonna mark it eventually.
Someday, yeah. I think that-
Markers. Or
Yeah, she said she was going to
Oh,
eventually.
all right, sorry, I missed that.
Ideally, you just paint it on the
Little line.
concrete, yeah.
And are we going to maintain that in the winter? I've been asked. So people can still walk it.
That is a discussion we're still kind of talking about.
My first.
I'd say that's up
I'd
to
like-
you. If you want it maintained, we'll maintain it.
That's a liability hazard, I'm gonna tell you.
I was gonna say, that's a liability waiting to happen.
We maintain. Yeah.
Somebody slips on some ice.
We have trouble with our own sidewalks sometimes.
Is there going to be
That's a lot of
somewhere that people can walk, Alyssa, in the winter? Like, are you gonna still do the school? Open the
If
school?
we're allowed to school. Right now with COVID, we just don't know what's really going to happen. But if we're allowed to, we will definitely try to make that happen. Last year we used early morning, but that was because that's when the school was available. You know, it was before practices started. So I heard a lot of people ask if we could do it later in the day. Yeah, but
Why
that
it was asked if we were going to maintain, because of the COVID, if we were gonna maintain the trail.
yeah, I worry about trying to keep
Hard
on
to walk.
the trail. I worry about that.
Did they plow the loop at the
Yeah.
park?
Yeah.
Hoover Park's a great place to walk. It's gonna be under construction this winter. though. Okay, anything else?
I have a question for Matt.
Sure.
When are you gonna do the street markings again? There's a lot of crossings that don't have hardly any paint left on them.
Yeah, the week after next. We have some sidewalk repairs we're gonna do. One starting this week. Then we got a bigger one next week we're gonna do. And then we're gonna sweep all the streets and then we'll paint everything. Normally we try to do them before hometown days and we didn't have hometown days, so we didn't rush as fast to get it, but we'll have them done the week after next, yeah.
The question I have is, are we using watered down paint? Because it doesn't seem like it lasts very long.
It'll last on concrete streets, on the asphalt like downtown. It doesn't work. We're using the same paint that Diamond Vogel uses that does all the county painting and everywhere else. It's just, it doesn't last on asphalt very long.
Okay. Obviously, because you just painted it all last summer and it's all gone again.
Right. Well, normally we do it twice a year. We didn't get our spring painting because of all the COVID stuff and having the guys off, and we ran short of time to try to get everything done. And so, yeah, normally it would have been done already once, and then we would have done it again like this week. So.
Okay.
Anybody
Right-
else?
Right in front of the post office. That asphalt, whatever it is absolutely horrible.
When can we get that mill down, Matt? Next summer?
I don't even
We
know
could-
what to do there.
We could put it in the budget to have them mill it out. I requested that like 2 years ago and you guys turned it down. But yeah, when we did the sidewalk project there, I was going to do that. I think it was about 26,000 to do that block. Just like 2-inch overlay, which is what we did on the next block over to fix it. So, but yeah, we could put it in the budget for next year.
Isn't that the reason why it's doing what it's doing? Is the 2-inch overlay? It doesn't adhere to the surface
If you
flow.
dig into that street, they have and I don't know the purpose of it. I think it's to keep the top layer together, but they put a felt under it. And in some of the areas, it seems like that felt is actually like causing issues where it's separate. If I go out and cut into that street, into Main Street, there's concrete, then there's a couple inches of overlay, then there's a felt, then there's a couple inches of overlay again. And that top layer doesn't seem to adhere. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the purpose of that felt was. I'm sure Dave could tell you. I would imagine it's to hold the surface together and not have the transfer of cracks from the bottom to the top. But it seems to cause problems where there's a lot of traffic.
We got to get that done next summer, I think.
Everybody's stopping.
Okay.
Okay.
I can get prices on doing from that intersection. I mean, I'd probably do from the other side of the intersection, from the east side up to North Downey where we stopped last time.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I know we want to get out of here, but that intersection there at the post office, is that manhole section, is it settled or what's the deal there? Because that thing's down in 1.5, 2 inches.
Yeah, I'm assuming, I don't think the manhole settled, but I'm assuming that the concrete that they poured around that settled a little bit, or it's just moving. It wouldn't be probably tied into the other concrete. It has, I think it has a expansion joint all around it. So I'd imagine there's a little bit of settling and some movement there, and that with the heavy traffic there is breaking it up.
You did that 2 years ago, right?
Yeah, it's not very old. It probably would have been 4 years now.
Well, whenever First Street was put in,
Yeah.
it was all part of that intersection.
Yep. It doesn't seem to be actually like movable, like it doesn't vibrate when you drive over it or anything. So I don't think it's a hollow spot. It's just that, yeah, they probably compacted, and with expansion there, it'll move and get broke up. So
Not so much the breaking up, it's the settling of.
right. I mean, and we could fill that in to get it back up level. I don't know if it'll do any. I mean, if that's all we're concerned about, we could do that.
Okay.
Look good for
I mean, eventually we'll have to tear it back out and re-pour it again.
My only comment is, at some point, we need to assemble a police chief interview team. Redmond, myself, we're gonna get a citizen here, and I'd like one of you council people. So I'm thinking Nick.
We do,
If you can, it'll be during the daytime, probably.
we do have the opportunity to use our outgoing chief too, so he's probably the most in tune with the job.
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah.
So there's a committee right there. Okay, anything else?
They kept saying that they wanted, get your pen ready. That they wanted a person of color on the panel. Redmond, you're gonna be on that panel, aren't you?
Yeah, I think I fall in that category.
We're halfway there.
I think, you know what's funny? I think while they were saying that, I think they realized that, and then the number went from 1 to 2. I think I heard another request.
I know he said he would be interested.
And then the other,
Yeah.
then the other question
Justin,
I had
Yeah.
was, my whole approach on this was we were hiring from within anyway, aren't we?
Well, you gotta,
We're
Because
gonna talk about that.
you gotta open it up.
I don't know.
Or no? We don't
I
have
don't
I
think
don't
so
know.
we have to, because if we hire somebody from the outside, unless we all agree we want 5 officers, that means somebody gotta go.
Exactly right.
That's right.
I'm agreeing with you.
I agree too.
You don't need 5 officers.
So we hire from within.
Yeah, absolutely. Tim.
So far.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
Before we get to that point.
Motion to adjourn? Nick? Colton?
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.